It looks like something big is on the way for 40k this weekend, so today we're going to have a chat about what Saturday might bring. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where we're all about getting the most out of our miniatures on the tabletop. Today though we're talking about some 40k rumours, and trying to make some semi-educated guesses and speculations as to what's the big 40k preview that Games Workshop have announced on their website and is coming on Saturday. I'm sure the vast majority of you will be aware of how they're doing these online previews these days. They broke their Adepticon preview down into 3 individual sessions, showing off tons of Age of Sigmar stuff, including Lumineth Realm Lords and the Sons of Bahamut, plenty of Hobbit miniatures, and some tidbits from the 40k Psychic Awakening series. This next one is going to be done on Twitch in exactly the same way, and I'll link to the Games Workshop article that's announced this coming preview in the description below. Basically, the next preview is billed for Saturday the 23rd of May, and unlike the other previews, which seem to have been a mix of all of their different game systems, with very little for 40k to be honest, this one is being billed as a preview literally just for 40k, there won't be anything else. To be honest, I'm not entirely surprised, because of the way that the other previews have been slanted. It does seem that they've held back on their 40k stuff until this preview, and I suspect that this is still stuff that would have been shown at Adepticon otherwise, but it might just have been another announcement that they had planning anyway. They seem to be building this up quite big again, so let's have a talk about what we might see for 40k. Firstly, I'm pretty much guaranteed I think that we are going to see something Necron from this release. Basically, in a previous Warhammer community post, Games Workshop has already treated us to a nice cave painting-esque drawing, showing the Necrons lording it over the galaxy, and talking of the fact that once there was a king, and their king shall return. Most of the internet's reaction seems to have been that this is likely going to be the Silent King, also known as Zarek, who in the background is pretty much the High Overlord of the Necron race, both in the distant past and now they're re-emerging once more. In a way he's much like Astrobel Vec, who is arguably the single most important for the Dark Eldar race, but isn't currently represented by any miniature in 40k. It kind of stands to reason that he could easily get a miniature in a big Necron release, if that is indeed what we're about to see. We already know that Illuminor Seraz is going to be coming back with a thoroughly disturbing but also pretty awesome miniature, but seeing as they're making quite a big deal about more Necron releases, it's pretty certain that we're going to be getting more than just him. So it will be interesting to see if we do get the Silent King revealed on Saturday. It would certainly seem a pretty logical step from this video and rumours of a big release on Saturday. Another possibility that's been quite an obvious one ever since we learnt the title of this Psychic Awakening book is that it is called Psychic Awakening Pariah. Now, I'm well aware that the Pariah gene is a psychic suppression gene out there in the Imperium, but it's also the name of a Necron unit from ages past. Necron Pariahs were a symbiosis of human and Necron technology, made out of human individuals that contain the Pariah gene, and are a terrible amalgamation of what was once a human and Necron augmentation, and are very much soulless killing machines in every sense. Now in these cave art style paintings, it does make me wonder if what we're seeing could be some pariahs, although it could admittedly be Lichguard who also bear war scythes. Ever since we heard the title for the book, I think it would be very easy to imagine the Necron Pariahs coming back in this, as Games Workshop does like revisiting units that they've had in the past, and Necrons releasing in a book called Pariah seems like the perfect opportunity to do so. In addition to this, Illuminor Seraz in his very miniature, seen harvesting a human captive in his very miniature, which certainly would tie in well with resurrecting the pariahs. I believe in some of the Psychic Awakening fluff as well, he's also been trying to capture an experiment on Calexis assassins, who as we all know bear the pariah gene and could certainly be turned into Necron pariahs. If I'm wrong after all this, then I'm very sorry, but I think that it seems that it's very likely that they'll be coming back. Whether or not they'll be just released alongside the Pariah book, or maybe we might get a nice Versus box set, as quite a lot of the other rumour sites seem to think we might. I have absolutely no idea at all. But either way, I think it's going to be really interesting to see. And to be honest, it's been a long time since Necrons got a proper range release. I believe their last release was a Cryptek from the Forgebane box, which was frankly a pretty minor release, and that happened quite a while ago. If it is a battle box, to be interesting to see what they're fighting. I still feel it's likely to be Sisters of Battle, seeing as they are the only ones that haven't received a Psychic Awakening update, and we are seeing at least one Sisters of Battle style miniature in the Demonofuge coming out with Pariah. I think it'll be really interesting to see, and Games Workshop will likely be clarifying a lot of these questions on Saturday. Now, either at the same time or tied in with the previous, I think we do have a legitimate chance of 9th edition being teased on Saturday, just because if this preview is on par with the others, then they'll likely be talking about miniatures for an entire hour or more, and even if we did get a massive Necron box set and range refresh, I find it unlikely that they would literally just sit and talk about that for an entire hour. Plus the language they're using when they're talking about it makes it seem quite big, It says, as we blow the lid off something huge for the 41st millennium, and there's so much Warhammer 40,000 goodness packed into this preview that we couldn't fit anything else in. Now we know that Games Workshop does have the propensity to slightly overhype their previews sometimes, so I'm not sure I'd absolutely bank on this being something enormously massive. Although frankly seeing a bunch of Necron miniatures would be really quite cool, and would represent something a lot more interesting for 40k compared with what we've seen teased over the last few previews. All we really got were a few character miniatures and a few minor announcements as to the rules coming in the Psychic Awakening updates. The reason that I think that there'd be a reasonable chance of 9th edition is that Psychic Awakening Pariah is going to be the last of the Psychic Awakening updates. Very much the current update cycle is coming to an end. In the new version of Games Workshop, where updates happen frequently for most armies, they're not going to just rest on their laurels. If for no other reason, then it's because they're a company and they want to keep on building up to a newer, cooler thing. That's certainly going to sell them a lot more than just letting things stagnate. The Psychic Awakening series has been really quite interesting, and I think they've done a reasonable job of providing meaningful updates to each of the armies as they've gone along. Though, as is always the case, it seems, some definitely came off a bit better than others. That really does imply that they're going to have to shift gear into something different, and honestly, a new edition would be a pretty reasonable step at this point. 8th has now been out for 3 years, and they've made quite a lot of changes to the core rules with FAQs and match play clarifications, and it would be quite handy to do a bit of consolidation and put that all together in a new edition. I don't think that this will be anything near as apocalyptic as 8th edition, and very much just a consolidation and clarification type thing, rather than just blowing up all of the previous books and then coming out with new ones, but it could still be the opportunity for some major shifts in 40k. I'll be aiming to have a video come out on the sort of rules clarifications and adjustments I'd like to see in 9th sometime later this week. I feel like they're really going to need something to sell a new edition to people though, something exciting with new mechanics or new interesting things for people's armies to do. I honestly think that a reasonable move that they could make would be to do something like Endless Spells in Age of Sigmar and release something equivalent to them for 40k, for basically miniatures that represent in-game effects as opposed to units. For example, these various chaos icons and spiky bits here represent things that you can deploy in-game. For 40k, it would be deployed by actual psykers in the races that have them, or similar equivalents in the races that don't. Perhaps things like manifestations of the Emperor's Faith for the Sisters of Battle, or invoking some sort of ritual to the Blood God to open a portal and drown his enemies with tides of blood or something. Would sound like a reasonable one if you're playing Khorne Demons. As far as I can tell, these have been relatively popular in Age of Sigmar, and it would genuinely be interesting to see what sort of things they could do with them in 40k. This would give them some more new miniatures to sell, which of course Games Workshop would love, and they could provide a meaningful tactical update to the game without treading on the toes of things that came before so much, as they could come out with their own unique rules for these particular gizmos. One of the reasons that really makes me think that something like this could be likely is the fact that the Psychic Awakening series is called Psychic Awakening. Now I know in the background the psykers across the 41st millennium have been waking up, getting new and increased powers, and this has been causing problems, some of which have led to the events in the books, particularly ones like the Ritual of the Damned. I believe that Magnus was busy sacrificing a whole bunch of psykers, and it was up to the Grey Knights and Dark Angels to try and stop him. However, in terms of in-game buffs for psykers, we haven't really seen all that many, maybe a few extra powers here and there, such as the Grey Knights and Thousand Sun ones, but nothing really all that meaningful or game-changing, making psykers any more of an emphasis in the game than they were beforehand. Honestly, if this thing wasn't culminating in some sort of big buff for psykers at the end of it, then I find it very unlikely that they would name the whole series Psychic Awakening. I think they honestly would have gone for something a bit more generic, such as Trouble Amongst the Stars or something random like that, because then you don't get the weird sort of disconnect when you have a book called Psychic Awakening that's actually almost nothing to do with psykers and is about some greenskins and space Vikings having a punch-up. Now I know that the Necron stuff is pretty much locked in, but the rest is fairly blue sky thinking. There's certainly been a lot of rumblings about 9th edition on the way soon, but whether or not that happens in the very near future or a little bit further on is a bit of a question mark, and I'm sure that in any case Games Workshop's plans have been pretty much thoroughly messed around by the current virus situation, pushing back all of their releases by a significant amount of time. Even if they do announce stuff now, it might not be coming for months, and we still have 3 Psychic Awakening books to come out before any new edition happens. So plenty of time for other things to come out or other things to happen. Either way, I'll certainly be watching on Sunday, and I'll make a bit of a discussion video afterwards if there's something good worth talking about. Let me know what sort of things you think might be coming on Sunday down in the comments below, particularly if you think any of my guesses might be likely, or whether I'm talking utter rubbish. I guess we'll find out in the near future, but frankly any decent sized release for 40k is going to be interesting. I'll still likely add some cool miniatures or other different tactical abilities to the game. If you've enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics for more 40k content every day. And if you've been enjoying these videos lately, then feel free to check out the channel's Patreon page, it is what keeps them coming. as the support on Patreon is what allows me to keep on going with this channel in place of some of my shifts at my regular everyday job. As well as helping keep the videos coming, there's also regular prize draws, being able to vote on polls for what sort of videos come next for the channel, and being able to see a video each week early that other people don't get to see. So if any of that sounds good, then check out the link down in the description. And a big thank you to my Patrons for helping make this channel possible. In any case, thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.